Hey, good afternoon. This is Omar from Trinity Trading Partners. I want to go over some of the trades we took today. Today is August 5th, Tuesday. Um, Quite an active day of calls and puts. So I wanted to go over some of the trades we took um, live here in our Discord and kind of explain why we took them and what the setups were. Hopefully, this can be a learning experience for our current members, and then anyone who's interested in what we do and how we trade. So let's get into it here. First one we took was on OKLO. So this was every day we put out a watch list pre-market that usually has 3 to 4 or so tickers that we're interested in and the contracts that we're thinking of trading. And so OKLO was one of them. So we had OKLO at 79 as a breakout trigger to take some calls. We're really watching this 79.80 area. So this is the daily chart. Let's zoom in here. So since about late July, OKLO's been basing in this, set 68 to 78 range, about a 10-point range here. And on Monday, it had a really strong day through 73, 74. And it tested this high here, 78 and a half, roughly. So coming into today, we thought OKLO through 79 or 80 had a chance to break this 52-week high at 80.4. So let's zoom in here on the 15-minute chart. This is the open here. So just to start off, we had a really strong drive through 78.3, which was the high from yesterday. So just to start off the day, it was pretty strong. At the same time, SPX QQQ was also looking pretty good at the open, although it reversed later in the day, and I'll talk a little bit about that later and how we pivoted. But basically, just from like a timestamp perspective, we're looking at calls. We took some at 6:49. I'm on Pacific time, so 6:49 a.m., about 20 minutes into the open. So we'll zoom in on the 1-minute chart here. All right, so we broke this previous day high at 6:40. It was showing a lot of strength, and then it came into our level near 80.4. So this is the 52-week high breakout, and so we entered the 100 call for August 15th, so next week, at 1.55. And we took that to around 2.7, I think. 2.6 was our sort of last trim. They ended up hitting 3 near 85, but of course we wanted to take profit along the way here. We ended up stopping out of this trade because the markets did start to reverse. However, OKLO had a really strong close. It actually, it came back into this 80.5 level. Zoom back out to the 15-minute chart here. Came back down to this 80.5 level, right? And it actually held really, really well. And we had a strong close near 84. So definitely looking at this name moving forward. See how it does at 85 maybe tomorrow at the open. If it gaps up or has a nice opening drive, might look at a continuation play for calls. And then if it fails 80.5, that's going to look kind of like a fake breakout on the daily chart, and this might just be how to play moving forward for the upside until it gets back through 80.5. Okay, next trade here is Carvana. Okay, so let's zoom out to the daily chart here. There's a bit of context to this trade. So we took Carvana puts today. They ended up doing pretty well. Our last trim got to about 76% on some August 29th 300 puts, which is really, a really good payout. But the context here really is Carvana gapped up on earnings a few days ago, last week. Hit 413 and immediately came back down to this 52-week high of 364, 365, right? So to us, that's a pretty big indication that this is finding some really strong sellers above all-time highs, and there's no price acceptance up here. So with that, we started seeing a reversal in the market. And so we were looking for stocks showing relative weakness. We know in the short term, so the 15-minute chart of Carvana, in the short term, Carvana is in a bit of a downtrend here since it hit that new 52-week high near 413, right? So we'll zoom into today's action on the 1-minute chart here. Okay, so this is the open. It tried to get through this 365 level at the open, and eventually just couldn't really hold. So our entry was at 721 Pacific. So around here, we took the 829 300 put at 1.88. Okay, so our first trim was around this 360 level. Because that was the most recent support, right? And what we were really looking for at the entry up here was to see a break of 365, along with SPX, QQQ going lower, and eventually Carvana did test that 360, had not one buyer here, and then eventually came back in, sort of did a back test here, and came back lower to our next level near 351. I think by the time we hit 351, we were more or less out of this trade. And we're just holding some runners overnight just to see if, there's some continuation, maybe down to 342. Maybe do a full gap fill of the earnings report near 338. It's always good to have a couple runners overnight. All right. Okay, UNH is our next one. So UNH was an interesting one because you wouldn't have, let's zoom out to the 1-day chart here. I mean, this chart's completely sort of destroyed, right? And it was 620 earlier this year or late last year. And it's all, it's had just bad news after bad news after bad news, right? So this was a stock that was sort of on our radar because it's been really volatile. So it had this crazy low here at 250 back in May. Really strong rip higher back to 320, and then it kind of did nothing. This day here, July 1st, was the first day it kind of made a good move. And we did catch calls actually on this day, but it completely reversed by the next day. So it was kind of a 1-day move, and that was it. Fast forward, UNH reported earnings July 28th and gap down, and it was just heavy every single day, right? It's just lower, lower, lower. Eventually breached this 250 low and closed near 236, right? So mentioned in our commentary every day, UNH is worth worth watching on the side, but I wouldn't trade this until it recaptured this 250 level. So we'll zoom into today. I have UNH up, on my my intraday charts, because I think it's sort of an interesting stock to look at, just because it's so volatile lately. Um, so intraday today, let's see here, I'm on the right time frame. Yeah. So intraday today, kind of just, it was green, kind of reversed, and then it had this like candle here around 8:15 Pacific, where it really popped quite a lot, 241 to 250 almost, and that to me was okay. There's probably some news here. At the same time, HUM was ripping higher as well, and then also CNC. These are all healthcare stocks. So there was definitely some news that came out. It took a while for me to figure out what it was, and I think it was ended up just being some report. But UNH had started, had the initial news pop and then it kind of dropped, and it was really, it was holding pretty well here. But what was really interesting was if you were monitoring calls, the call premium was extremely strong. So the 270 call for next week, by the time UNH retested this 250 for the second time, those 270 calls were about 25% higher, than where they were when UNH was here. So that's kind of the premium deviation that we look for a lot. And so now the 170 call, or sorry, 270 call, really had our attention, and we ended up taking that trade through 250 on this candle. So zoom in a little bit more here. Right, so this was, the calls were about 25% higher here than when they were here. Big premium deviation. UNH came back lower. The calls held really well. I mean, they were still, I think even the 270 call down here was still more expensive than when they were up here, right? So that's a big clue. And then eventually we took those 270 calls through 250 for the third time. We got one trim at 20% up here near 251, 252. And then eventually unfortunately the premium kind of died, and we stopped out the rest of our calls. But this was a nice, sort of scalp trade, where, you take profit at 20%. Unfortunately, it comes back down and you just manage your risk. So you don't end up having a winner become like a big loser. So yeah, this was really interesting, but again, like this was not something that you would see on just looking at the like UNH stock chart. You have to really monitor premiums to understand that a stock might have a chance at moving higher. So I'll be interested to see how it acts overnight and if there's any news that comes later this week. This is something definitely to keep on watch moving forward, especially since it did close over that 250 level, which was like a really big level to hold on the daily and weekly chart. All right. So towards the close today, the market got kind of weaker, and let me zoom out to the daily. And so we were watching Netflix, the stock, not the not the actual product. We do watch the market. We don't just watch Netflix while we trade. So Netflix was something that we traded. We traded the downside on this through this level here, 1180, a few sessions ago, and that paid really well. And just generally speaking, Netflix has been in a downtrend. If you compare this to QQQ, the tech index, I'll just bring it up here. QQQ is near its 52-week high. It hit a new 52-week high, 4 days ago. Netflix, however, hit a 52-week high back in June, right? So for a whole month, it's just been in a downtrend while QQQ has been moving higher. And so this is something we were watching for relative weakness and for some put trade. Intraday today, So intraday today, we held this 1160 level quite a few times all week long. So, July 24th held, July 29th held, um, August 1st held, kind of dipped below, but we got back up higher. And it was holding today in the morning, and eventually it broke lower here around 7:30. Oh, sorry, got my days mixed up. It held yesterday. Today it broke lower around 7:30 Pacific, and kind of chopped around here. Came back, retested the general area, found some sellers, and at the same time, SPX, QQQ were starting to have they were starting to reverse as well. So we had the index in our favor. And so we ended up taking Netflix weekly puts. We took the 1120 put at 2.3 around, say, 1120. Yeah, so we'll zoom in to the 1 minute chart here, get our exact area where we entered. So we entered around 1120. So it was after we broke this sort of local low once the 1160 area was breached, and we saw momentum in the indices heading lower. So we entered the 1120 put, ended up paying around 65% on the way down, and we're holding a few runners overnight as well, just to see if we gap down maybe to that 1141 area. But honestly, if the market's weak, it's really possible Netflix tests 1100 this week, by Friday, because this zone here under 1160, this was a really big key level, because it was the previous 52-week high that eventually broke out, ran, and now we're breaching back under. So psychologically speaking, anyone who's gotten long Netflix since May 15th is currently underwater, right? Anyone who bought in any of this time frame is currently underwater. And so the idea is we could see those fresh buyers eventually become net sellers. And although we have a couple interesting levels here, 1142 and then 1130, I wouldn't consider these really big levels. They're more like minor levels on the way down. The two big levels here are 1160 and then 1100. So yeah, totally could see this down to 1100 by this week if we get a strong flush in the markets. Okay, last trade we took today. It's a fun one. So this is FIG. This is a daily chart. There's only 4 days available, right? So this IPO'd last week. It was supposed to IPO at like 36, I think, and ended up opening at 84, I believe, or 85, right? And it kind of dipped to 84 and got bought up. So I'm gonna zoom in here on the hourly. Let's go even lower. Let's go 15 minutes here. So this is all the price action we have, right? About 4 days. This stock, new IPO, really volatile, 84 to 150. It was actually, 142, 150 pre-market that day. And, it got sold off. We have been watching this actually for originally for a dip buy. But there was so much put flow on this stock. And I will say we actually got trapped in calls. Let's see. Yesterday, here, it was this area. We got trapped in calls around here because we saw some deviation on call premiums. I think it was the 120 call for 815. Started to show a lot of strength around the lows here. And we took that trade, ended up stopping out for like minus 40% or so. But then coming into today, we recognize, hey, FIG is not, something you want to buy calls on right now. There's actually a lot of put flow on it. So we were watching this today, and towards the close, this is our last trade of the day, and we're holding an overnight position on it. Towards the close, we started breaching this 84 area, which is that IPO low, right? 84.1 or so. We'll just call it 84. Once it got under 84, this really piqued our interest because similar to how I explained Netflix, like every single buyer up here is now underwater, right? Unless you got shares at the IPO price of 36, which, from what I understand, not that many people actually got their full fill on anyways. So we're actually watching several puts. We're watching August 15th, 70 put, 65 put, and 60 put. All of them started ripping higher around the close here. Yeah, once we started seeing this sort of downtrend under 85, then eventually 84, all these puts kind of just ripped higher. And so we ended up taking the August 15th 60 put at 1.05, with the idea being that if FIG were to gap down, and right now it's down 2 points post market, we'll see how that actually holds overnight. Once we're under 84, it's kind of like it's the same way you hit a new 52-week high, it's blue skies. There's price discovery under 84. There's a lot of price discovery to be had all the way down to 36 essentially. So if we see a really, really strong sell in FIG, which is totally possible now that it's under 84 and it closed really weak, it's totally possible, we test 50 this week, for example, or even within the next 2 weeks. And so that 815 60 put can be 10 from 1.05, right? Which is a 10x trade. And so that's the idea with taking these FIG puts. So we'll see how tomorrow goes. If we gap down, obviously we'll probably take some profit and then hold a position for a bit longer. And yeah, so that's those are trades today. It was a very active day, especially coming out of July where we really didn't do much and we kind of sat on our hands. Maybe took 1 to 2 trades a day. Today we took 5, which is a lot for us in general. And it was all across different sectors, different names, different sides, right? OKLO, UNH calls, Carvana, Netflix, FIG puts. It's quite a diverse set of tickers and direction as well. So yeah, looking forward to the rest of August now that we're out of this July low volatility mess that we were in. It's definitely a lot more of an exciting market moving ahead. All right, thanks for tuning in to this trade recap. I plan on doing more of these, especially on the active days, so you guys get a feel for what we're looking for and how we take trades. If you have any questions, please leave a comment. I'll definitely try to get back to you guys. Yeah, thanks, and I'll see you guys all in the Discord tomorrow morning. All right, take care.